Our next speaker was kind of interesting the way my journey started. So I was pretty frustrated. I think several of you have heard the story, but I was pretty frustrated back in 2014, rolling into 2015, and I found the Fast Cap tour that probably a lot of you found. And it was kind of a changing point of me going, maybe there's something different. I contacted Paul and I talked to him a little bit, but I was spending a lot of time on the internet and I was trying to find just different things besides Fast Cap. Is this the only guy doing it? Maybe he's the only guy be able to accomplish this. Didn't really know a lot about it. And I found Gimba Academy, which a lot of you probably know who Gimba Academy is, but if you don't, it's an online service where they do lean training videos, and they go out to companies and do Gimba Live. And so I found another Fast Cap on Gimba Live. And then I found another company where an individual was talking on it, and I really liked what he had to say. Then several years later, Gimba Academy asked to do a Gimba Live on us. And I think in this room now, there's a Gimba Live on Fast Cap. There's been a Gimba Live on Ryan's facility at Seating Matters, and they came out to do one on us, and I'm not sure if anybody else has been involved, but the gentleman that came out was the guy that was on this video. He ended up working for Gimba Academy, and it was between Paul and what I saw from Steve were the two things that propelled me forward to really wanted to embrace this journey. So I'd like to welcome Steve Kane.
Thanks very much. I'm going to ask everybody to stand for a moment. Uh-oh. I think I broke the microphone. Another one. Oh, it works. Okay, good. Okay, just hang with me for a minute here. Thank you. Stand up. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I don't know why you did that. I was just burning off nervous energy. But it's amazing what you can do if you set the example. I started my lean journey back in the late 90s. I was a big-time motorcyclist. I was really into sport touring motorcycling. And at the same time, I was going to college. I went to college later in life than most people. I was about 30 when I started. And I went to school at UC Santa Cruz, and I needed a part for my motorcycle, and I rode to the local BMW shop. And there was an ad on the parts counter, part-time parts assistant. So I thought this would be perfect. I'm going to go to work here, support my motorcycle habit, and I'm going to be able to go to school, really flexible schedule. So I thought it was going to work out perfectly. And it worked out well. What ended up happening was I got involved in continuous improvement, and I had no idea what it was. Never heard of lean, never heard continuous improvement, never heard respect for people. But what happened was I got put into an assignment where I was working in a parts room where we had parts coming through a small door like this. We didn't have a loading dock, but we had crates of parts coming in these big orders. They get dumped outside. I'd have to break down the pallet, break down the crate, and bring everything inside and put it on workbenches right inside the door. Now, this room was about 3 times the size of this stage. And from these parts coming in, we'd have to receive them, go through this process, put them in the proper bin location, and then from that, they would go out through the parts counter to the showroom, go out to the service area through another counter, and we were also the first in BMW motorcycling to sell anything online. The online retail was just getting started. So we had a third channel. We had parts going right back out that same door. It was a small door. And we had this constraint of space. And the owners thought, oh, this place is wonderful. We have this huge room. And I'm thinking, we're just cramming into each other. Everybody who's working in this parts room, we had a few of us, all day long, we're bumping into each other. And it was just problem after problem after problem. One of the things that happened all the time was the orders going out the door. You know, we had, remember, dot matrix printers, and everything was in 10-point font. Every line was exactly the same, at least in general appearance. Well, right in the middle of all this heavy text, all the boilerplate lawyer stuff was the shipping method. That's where it said overnight, ground, 2-day air. So all the time we're getting these things, we're putting these orders out the door, and 90% of the orders are ground, 10% are 2-day or overnight, And every single one of those overnight orders was getting shipped ground, and we were just getting complaint after complaint. So I just kind of thought, how are we going to fix this? We can't change the printer, we can't change the system. So I had this idea, how about we just get a stamp that says FedEx overnight in red. If it's an overnight, just stamp it, so we can just, it's really obvious. Ground, now the ground truck, they had a green logo, so we had FedEx green, ground in green, so we stamped that on there. Right, really simple solution. All right, so that's getting better, but we're still crashing into each other. And when we receive all these orders, we have this small space with a lot of parts, and we're taking everything out of the crate, putting it all on a workbench, receiving some things into the system, and leaving some things on the counter. We go home for the night, come back and pick it up, and inventory was off, everything was a mess. So we thought, okay, there's gotta be a better way. It's gotta be a lot easier to do this than the way we're doing it. And the idea is, the product needs to flow like water. It needs to flow into that door, through our receiving system, go onto the shelf, go off to the shelf, over the counter, and it needs to go away. And it needs to be that simple so we can maintain our sanity, for one, but so we can properly serve our customer. Because we were frustrated every single day. And because of that lack of simplicity, we were delivering really bad service. Great product, bad service. So we started thinking about this idea of flow. And new rules. When we do the orders, we're no longer going to order parts every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and get huge crates. We're going to order parts every 2 days, and we're going to have really small orders. Order comes in, the whole box comes in, new rule. You take a part out, it never leaves your hand until it's received into the system and it goes into the proper bin location. And we really stuck to that. We watched people pull a part out, receive it into the system, go to put it away, and the phone rings, and they're trying to hold the phone and a part and take notes and do all this stuff, but everybody stuck to that one rule. And that made everything simple. And we started applying these little ideas, one by one, all around the shop. And I didn't know anything about continuous improvement, but things got better, and we started performing better. Now, the problem with it was every idea was mine. And I just told everybody, do it this way, new rule, right? This is the way it's gonna work. And it was easier, and people appreciated that, but at the same time, I had high turnover, I had low morale, people weren't enjoying working there. So after a few years of this, I went into the medical device business. I got recruited to go into a medical device manufacturing company. I started on the production floor, and that's where I learned lean was a thing. This idea of organization, putting simple stamps on things, color coding things, simple flow. Like flow is actually a big deal and other people in the world are aware of it. That's fantastic. So I started reading the books, Toyota Way, The Goal, Gold Mine, all of the others. You've read them all as well. And I really studied and I wanted to learn lean. A few years later, I became a plant manager. And that is where my train wrecked. I was like super into lean and I loved applying it on the production floor. And when I went to work as a plant manager, everybody there already understood lean. They knew what the general concepts were. They understood continuous improvement, and they were already doing 5S. They had gotten started one-piece flow. And I'm thinking, this is going to be the easiest job ever because I get to share all of the things that I love, and everybody's going to love it too. And I went in and I saw, oh, 5S is already in place. It can be better. But we can improve it. We can do a little bit better with visual management. So I started really pushing these things on people. And I was cramming it down their throats. And I just couldn't understand, how is it that you can't understand how beneficial this is and how easy it is and how much better our lives will be? Just do it if you just do it this way. One of the things I saw was batch processing. We had started one-piece flow. We were making parts no bigger than the cartridge inside of a ballpoint pen. These were surgical electrodes. And I'm telling people, handle one at a time, put the part on, one piece goes down the line. And we're all working these four-person cells. And people were doing this, and everything was going great. And then I would leave, and then I'd come back. Everybody's doing one-piece flow, everything's good, and we're in a clean room. So I can't just walk back and forth. I have to go into a gowning room, put on all the stuff, and then go through. And there's one little window on the door. And I notice I'm putting my gown on, and I'm looking through the window, and I see people with, they got close to 100 parts in their hand, and they're doing everything in a big batch in their hand, and they're having conversations, and they're putting these caps. Imagine putting a cap on a pen, right? That's kind of the difficulty of what they were doing. But that cap has to be on at a very tight tolerance. So they're doing it by hand, and they're doing this, and the tolerances are off. And they can't, we can't understand why, but I'm watching them do this, and then I go out onto the floor, and then suddenly, one-piece flow. I don't say anything, and I walk away, and a little while later, I see him through the window again, and I walk out, one-piece flow. Like, okay, this isn't working. And I was disciplining people. This is the way we do it. We documented everything. This is now our process. And people just would not accept it. And I couldn't understand, why are people resisting? And what is so bad about this? And after a while, one of the things I started to notice was nobody smiles. No one's enjoying work. I mean, not at all. People come in, especially on Monday morning, just dragging, and then working through their 10-hour day, kind of speeding through the door in the other direction, but nobody was really enjoying their work. And it got pretty bad. They started complaining to HR about me. They complained to my boss, the company president, to the extent that these folks in California, it's a California-based company, but my factory was in Michigan, the company president would fly out 2,000 miles and spend a week with us to see what's going on. And people were complaining to him. HR would fly out, spend a week with me, and then have these meetings of, Steve, this is what you're doing wrong, and here's what you need to do to correct it. I was afraid for my job. One visit, I knew the company president was coming, and he typically showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning, especially because he's from California, think time zones. He was in Michigan, so to him, 8 o'clock in the morning is 5 a.m. So I thought, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to go in at 7. I'm going to greet him when he comes in. I drive up, and he's already there. And I'm just like, oh, today's the day. I'm going to lose my job. And I was genuinely scared. He didn't fire me. We kind of worked through all these things, the problems that we were having with the morale and the disappointment and the resistance, all of this. And I just remember he was writing some notes in his notebook, and he just kind of looked up at me and said, this is all workable stuff. And he closed his notebook, and he made his way home. So time goes on. I'm still having these troubles. One of my supervisors, who had a background in HR, she went to AME, Association for Manufacturing Excellence, and she sat in on a talk presented by a guy named Larry Davis from Damon Products in Mishawaka, Indiana. And he talks about how his company transformed, and one of the key things that they did was they extended trust to the people, and they were running the operation, and he wasn't. And she just lit up. She was super excited about this, to the point that she called me, which to me was really surprising. So she's off at AME, I'm in the factory. She calls me and says, Steve, I found the missing link. I understand why Lean isn't working. It's this one thing, it's called the customer-focused culture, and you have to give everybody trust, and you have to let them run the factory, and I'll tell you all about it when I get back. And I hung up thinking, something just happened, because Nikki doesn't like me, and she would never call me for anything. But she wanted to tell me about this. So she comes back, and she's telling me all about this idea of a customer-focused culture, and we have to extend trust to everybody, and we're going to let the operators make all the decisions on the production floor. They're going to decide when to run production, when to do everything, when to take breaks, and I'm just kind of looking at her like, you have got to be out of your mind. Like, I can't even get them to do one-piece flow, and I'm supposed to extend this trust to everybody. Like, absolutely not. I'm absolutely not going to do it. So this goes on for a while. Some fire would come up, and Nikki would say, if we had this customer-focused culture, if we had this environment of trust, like, this problem would have solved itself. You never would have gotten involved. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think we're different. We're special. We're not, the same excuses that you always hear about Lean. We're not automotive. We're not Toyota. I'm giving her. She reports to me, and I'm giving her these excuses. Like, no, we're not going to do this, because I can't extend that level of trust, because I have too many problems with performance. And we were writing people up left and right for every little thing. In our staff meetings with the leadership team, we had 3 supervisors and me. We had our weekly staff meetings. One agenda item was our personnel problems, and we had this long list of all the conflict and all of the issues and performance problems every week, and we had this long list. And we were working through those things over and over and over. New item would come up, and Nikki would say, if we had this customer-focused culture, this wouldn't be so difficult. It wouldn't be hard. And I'm just like, okay, excuse. This goes on for about 3 months, and she says, this guy, Larry Davis, he invited us to go down to Mishawaka and teach us everything he knows, and we can go on the floor and we can experience what they're going through and understand what we're missing. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Time goes on, she keeps pressing, she's super professional, very, very polite. And after a while, I just said, fine, go ahead and set up this meeting because I just want you off my back, So I go to this meeting, and Larry is super kind. All 4 of us are there, our whole leadership team, and he gives us this slide deck, this presentation on what he calls a customer-focused culture. And he said, we have some really basic principles. First thing is for everybody is to fulfill your purpose. And your purpose in life is to help the customer be successful and to do the right things for the right reasons. That's it. You're doing those 2 things, you're doing the right thing in this company, if you're genuinely doing those 2 things. Secondly, people are trustworthy and they want to do a good job. Nobody's going to work to say, how can I be a pain in Steve's neck today? That's just not happening. They're trying to do a good job, and if they're not performing well, you've got to understand this cause and effect relationship. And this performance issue that you're seeing, it's an effect. And consider the possibility you are the cause. And I just kind of sat there and thought about that. I could be the cause of these performance issues. So he's going on talking to us about his principles. People are trustworthy and they want to do a good job. And that's just really sinking in with me. And he says, as a leader, your role is to teach, coach, mentor, and inspire. That's it. You got to let go of command and control. Teach, coach, mentor, and inspire. And I'm like, got it. The light came on over my head, and I had experienced what professional coaches would call a shift. My thinking had changed. And on the way back from this meeting, we're in this car, we have this 5-hour drive, I've got my supervisors, and we're laying out this plan and this drive back, how tomorrow we're going to start this customer-focused culture. And we're laying out all the details of the plan. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to communicate it. This is what we're going to do on a daily basis. And a few hours into this conversation, I just kind of realized there's no way this plan's going to work because we're going to be so focused on the plan that we're not actually going to get anything done. I think we need to let go of the plan. Let's let go of the details, and instead, we're going to go back and we're going to communicate the vision. This is what it's going to mean to work here. We want people to make the greatest contribution possible for themselves and for their families and also to the company and to the customer. We want you to feel fulfilled. We want you to experience joy in the workplace. We want you to smile every once in a while you're here. We want you to really enjoy it because we know that quality delivery, all of that is going to be affected by you and by your desire to be here and your desire to do a great job. So we painted this picture and we said, okay, tomorrow we're going to have this all-employee meeting and we're going to tell everybody this is the way it's going to work. And we're just going to have to figure it out. So I had this all-employee meeting. I had everybody get together for the last 2 hours of the day in the warehouse. We had 32 people in this plant. And I painted this really rosy picture of how wonderful life's going to be. And they're looking at me like, are you out of your mind? And I was looking back at them and I say, hey, look. Tell me if I'm wrong, but there isn't a single person in the room who enjoys coming to work here, right? Show of hands, who likes being here? And they all looked around at each other, and not a single hand went up. And I let that sink in for a little bit, and I said, that's what I want to change. I want you to want to be here. So here's this big rosy picture. This is where we're going. There are no alternatives. This is just the way it's going to be. And one thing that I know is not everybody's going to want to do this. And if you don't want to do it, you're going to tell me. And you're going to tell me either right to my face or you're going to demonstrate it through your actions. But that's where we're going. And I wish you the best. I want everybody to be successful. And if you don't want to be here and you tell me, I will do everything that I can to get you where you want to be. You want to work for somebody else? Tell me. I'll see if I can get you if I can make a recommendation, or I can help you with a resume, if I can teach you how to interview. I will find a way to get you where you want to go. And they kind of sat and thought about that for a minute. So I made it okay for them to leave. And then we started talking about how is this really going to work. So I said, tomorrow morning, I no longer run the plant, you do. This is 100% your operation and your responsibility. So you, as an operator, are responsible for safety, quality, delivery, and cost. All of that is up to you. You'll decide when the factory opens, when it closes, what we're going to build, when we're going to build it, how quickly it needs to be built, what is in spec, what is not, when it's going to ship, how you're going to source your parts, when you source your parts. All you. You're going to decide all of the work schedules, all of the work assignments. You'll decide when people take breaks, when you're going to go to lunch. If you want to go on vacation, you are no longer permitted to request time off. You decide if you're going to take time off, and you simply communicate it to your team and to management. That's the way it's going to work. And they're looking at me like, no, I don't see this happening. And here's how it's going to happen. Every day you come to work and there's a work assignment already decided for you by your supervisor. That won't be there anymore. You're going to come to work, you're going to work with your teams, and you're going to come up with the work assignments. And there are going to be a lot of questions. And when you have a question, when you have doubts, you come to me, you come to the supervisors, and you ask me your question, and I promise you I will not answer it. But instead, I'm going to ask you questions in return. And together, we're going to find the answers to your questions. But it's going to be up to you. Now, also, supervisors, anybody in a leadership capacity in this factory is going to be on the floor from the opening of the factory in the morning to the end of your shift for as long as you need us. And we'll ask you if you need us, if we can go back to our offices. And any admin work that has to be done is going to have to be done after your needs are met. So if we have to work late, or we have to work on the weekends, or take our work home with it, that's going to be on us. It's not going to be on you. But we're going to be on the floor with you all day for as long as it takes. And they just thought, not going to work. And I could just see the concern in their eyes. And then I said, one other thing. 30 days from today, we're going to have another all-employee meeting. And you are going to be on some very specific teams. And you and your teams are going to have a report out. Now, your teams, I'm deciding the teams for 30 days. After 30 days, you decide the teams. But I need to get this started, so I've just gone ahead and made these assignments. So they're kind of looking at me, kind of bewildered, not really sure what's going on. 30 days from today, you and your team are going to have an off-site meeting. So here are the rules. Must be on company time, must be on the regular factory production scheduled time. It must be at least 2 hours. It must be off property. It may not interfere with any other team, may not interfere with production, may not interfere with the customer. You have a budget of $10, do what you want with it. If you don't spend it all, we need change in a receipt. If you want to spend more than that, that's on you. You can spend as much as you like. So here's the other thing. You may not ask any questions of any supervisor or of me about how to get this done. This is all the instruction you get, make it happen. Figure it out. And they all looked at me like, okay. And I asked nobody about their meetings, anything. We, as a leadership team, we knew, don't inquire and don't get involved in it at all. And 30 days later, well, back up a little bit. The next day, everybody came to work, walked out on the floor, really quiet, looking at the production board. Sure enough, no job assignments. What do we do? And as a leadership team, we all got together and said, hey, they're going to ask us all kinds of questions. Here's how we respond. When they say, what do we do? Our response is, I don't know. What do you think you should do? Right? We make no statements. We ask questions. And that's what we did. People came in. Should we do this? I don't know. What do you think you should do? Well, I think we ought to make that. And well, why do you think you ought to make that? Well, it's on the production schedule. Okay, well, if you think it's the right thing to do, go for it. And somebody said, well, there's nothing else on the schedule. Where's the list of what needs to, where are the other orders? And I said, I don't know where the other orders are. That's actually something I don't know how to do. Does anybody else on the floor know how to do it? And somebody said, yeah. Okay, will you help this person? And then we started getting things moving. What about job assignments? We both want to do the same job. Figure it out. You're adults. You're no less of an adult than I am. Make it happen. And they started figuring it out. And we had chaos for 2-3 weeks. And it was a mess. But every day as a leadership team, we were out there and we were just like kind of like, ooh, I can see it in our eyes. This is going to be a mess. And there'd be some conflict. And one of the rules when people came to us and say, hey, Joe is doing this and Joe shouldn't be doing that. Great, hold on a sec. Hey, Joe, come here. Go ahead and say what you were just saying. And we made people face each other. I don't like working with Sue. Sue, Joe doesn't like working with you. Come here. And then we started seeing those things kind of go away. But people were so consumed with their responsibilities of delivering on time to the customer and 100% quality that their time for gossip and all the conflict, that started going away. And people became committed to delivering for the customer. Now, I don't want to paint this rosy picture. It was a mess for a few weeks. But then it started settling down. And after a while, we started to notice, like, we're leaving, as a leadership team, we're leaving the production floor pretty early in the day. We're out there for a little while, then we go away. Everything's fine. Everything's running. And the delivery, we're on time. I don't want to jinx it or anything, but things are going okay. We started noticing on our weekly staff meeting agenda the number of personnel issues. Well, that started going away too. And then we had that meeting 30 days later. Everybody was to report out. So, okay, all the teams, all right, team one, go ahead and report out. Now, they had a couple of deliverables for their offsite meeting. They needed to come up with a list of ground rules for their team. They were going to agree amongst themselves how they were going to treat each other, how their team was going to function. So they had to come up with a list of ground rules and put it on a big piece of poster paper. So in the production area, they were going to hang this list of ground rules for that team. The other thing was they had to learn something else about every other member of the team that nobody on the team previously knew. And they came back, said, I've worked with this person for 12 years, and I never knew that we had the same hobby. And they suddenly started becoming friends. And what I was thinking with this offsite meeting is actually something I learned I studied philosophy at Santa Cruz. And Aristotle said, friends are people who have eaten salt together. People who have faced a challenge, who have dealt with adversity. So I wanted to take this team of people who really didn't like each other so much, and I wanted to send them into the unknown with no help. Because they were going to figure it out, but the only way they could do that would be to come together. And they did. They all took care of the petty cash issue, no problem. They gave us the deliverables, and they were excited to report out. And they were, once, they were happy to be there, and they enjoyed one of these meetings. And then, when they finished doing all of that, then I showed them the P&L statement. And I told them, hey, look, this is highly confidential. The owners of this company don't share financial information. This is a P&L, profit and loss statement. Here's what I need you to know. And I started line by line. Here's gross revenue. Here's the cost of materials. Here's the cost of labor by part number. Here's what it costs to put this together. Here's the cost of each component. Here's the cost of scrap. At the end of every day, we make you count all of your scrap, and you have to enter it in the computer with a scrap code and tell us the nature of that defect. This is why. And let me tell you why this is important. Look at this one item, this one part number with this one scrap code. There's enough money in that one scrap code to hire 2 full-time operators. We're burning that much money on a monthly basis on just that, and we have this long list of scrap codes. Also, I want to show you, we make 9 parts in this factory, 6 are profitable, 3 are unprofitable, and they haven't earned a dime for us in 10 years. They've always been unprofitable for us. And they were looking at it, and they were scratching their heads, well, how can that be? And I just left them with that. And we went back to work. And somewhere around there, somebody emails me a link to some video. Turns out there's some guy in Washington saying, oh, lean is easy, lean is fun. I'm like, you are out of your mind. Lean is not easy, lean is not fun. This is hard. And they're still not really 100% on board. And I'm looking at this idea of 2-second lean, and I see this guy going around talking to everybody about what's your improvement, show me what you're doing, good job, well, that didn't work out. Okay, what are you gonna do next? And I'm just kind of thinking, I'm not so sure that's the direction I wanna go. I'm not really bought into it. I get the little incremental improvements by everybody every day. Okay, I get that. But I couldn't really buy into the whole high energy thing, and Like, not for me. But this idea of my job is to teach, coach, mentor, and inspire, that was sticking with me. And I was out on the floor all day, every day, as much as I could be. And what I started seeing, I started asking questions. What are you doing out here? What are you working on? And I'm working on this job, and it needs to be delivered by Thursday, and I have to make 65,000 parts, and we've got 10,000. Like, okay, well, great. Are you on time? Well, I don't know. Would you like to know? I would. Okay. And then I walked away. Like, wait, come back. A long time ago, you made us watch this video about balancing cycle time with something else, some other time. What was that? Because I think that's related to this. Like, oh, tack time, yeah. So teach us this. So I started going through the calculation. 20 minutes later, they had an hour-by-hour board. They knew what they needed to do by lunch. They knew what they needed, when they needed to decide that they were going to do overtime, and if so, how much. They started doing all of this on their own. I ended up rotating back to California, but I'm still thinking about this whole idea of teach, coach, mentor, and inspire, and I think that I understand it. And I also see more and more of these videos of 2-second lean, and I'm like, no, that's not it. Teach, coach, mentor, and inspire, that's what I need to do. But what is it that I need to teach? I wasn't really clear on that. How do I coach? What does that mean? How do I mentor? How do I inspire? Why is any of this important? I also learned a little something from Tony Robbins. He gave a TED Talk a few years ago. And in his TED Talk, he talked about 6 basic human needs, that we all have the need for consistency, variety, significance, belonging, growth, and contribution. And it's hierarchical. You have to have consistency first. Satisfy that need, then you can start to desire variety. Get that done. Now you can start to pay attention to your need for significance, on and on and on to contribution. I've got this going on. I have this 2-second lean piece in my head, and I have teach, coach, mentor, and inspire going on, and I'm trying to put the pieces together. What's really happening here? And I came to understand that people want to make a contribution. We all have that need. And if I'm going to teach, coach, mentor, and inspire, I've got to do it in such a way that I give people certainty, that I meet their need for consistency, that I give them enough variety that they are able to move on to feel like they're important. And I need to show them that they're important. And I can't say it, I have to demonstrate it. And then I need to make sure they feel loved, that they feel like they belong. I wrote a blog article once called Bowling Should Be Unnecessary. Anybody bowled before? Yeah. Anybody love bowling? Okay, small minority of those of us who have bowled actually love the game. Why is that? Why do you bowl? You don't love the game. Why do you bowl? Why would you go bowling? What's that?
The pursuit of perfection.
Pursuit of perfection? Most people go bowling because they enjoy being with the people. They want to drink beer, have pizza, and have a good time. Am I wrong? I mean, that's what bowling really is, right? And the idea was it should be unnecessary. Not that you shouldn't do it, but people are pursuing that. They're joining bowling leagues, even though they don't love the game of bowling, but they're doing this because they need to belong. And that need isn't being fulfilled somewhere else or anywhere else, at least not sufficiently. And that tells me that it's not being done at work. This need isn't being fulfilled by the people we work with, the people we work for, so we're seeking it somewhere else. Now, don't get me wrong. Go out and bowl and have fun with anybody you want. But you shouldn't be so desperate to fulfill that need to belong that you're pursuing these other things. Ideally, we would get that at home and at work. And if we're falling short at work, that's what we're going to see. And I started thinking about this. What are people doing? Are they pursuing these other things, trying to get these needs fulfilled outside of work? And is that because of something that I'm not doing? So we have this need to belong. Then we have a need to grow. We want to learn more. Now, lean, we can certainly fulfill that need. But until that's met, we're not going to make the greatest contribution possible. So that's how I started putting things together. I want people to be able to make the greatest contribution possible, and I'm going to teach, coach, mentor, and inspire. And what does that mean? Well, to teach, That means that I have to help people understand the entire business, not just the skill that they're performing at the moment. They need to understand their contribution as a business and how we're going to take care of the customer. I need to explain to them how we go about our business, what our values are, what our principles are, and then I can also begin to coach. Now, what does that mean? What do coaches really do? A coach's role is to get somebody from point A to point B. Now, they get to choose point A, and we as coaches, we have to meet them where they are, and we're going to help them get to point B. And that's going to be on their own schedule. And we do it by asking thought-provoking questions and never telling, never suggesting, never advising, because that's not the role of a coach. Sometimes we have to teach, and we'll go into that role, but as a coach, we're going to ask thought-provoking questions. And we're going to help them get to where they want to be. And what does it mean to mentor? Some people might look at Paul as a mentor, even though I met Paul today. This is the first time I've met him, but I've been following his example for years, right? So a mentor is somebody who has the experience, who's gone down the path you've gone down before. They set the example, and perhaps are also somebody that you can rely on for some wisdom, some advice. But that's the role of a mentor. And then inspire. What do we do to inspire people, and how are we going to go about that? That's pretty difficult. What does it mean to inspire somebody? For me, it's to help people get beyond their own self-limiting beliefs. And then there's this whole 2-second lean thing going through my head. And I'm trying so hard to say, no, that's not right, that's not lean, that's not the way it's done. And then it occurred to me as I'm watching one of Paul's videos, and he's walking around his factory, and there's one particular woman, and I don't remember her name, but she was kidding something with an aerosol can, I remember that, and they're putting something together, maybe you've seen the video, and she's trying to get the time down from X to Y, and I don't remember what that was, and she's trying it, some experiments, a little bit better, not where she wanted to be, and Paul was there, and like, okay, well, try it again. What else do you want to do? What's your next idea? And she's trying again and again and again. And the time keeps coming down, and they keep getting better, and she is super pumped. And then it occurred to me, that is teach, coach, mentor, and inspire. By walking around the factory every day, engaging with everybody, through that action, he was repeatedly saying, this is who we are as a company, this is what we stand for, this is how we serve our customer. These are our values, here are our principles. And he was also saying, I will not allow you to give up. And he was holding her accountable, not in a disciplinary or negative way, but what are you going to try next? What's your next idea? That was the accountability piece. That was what's keeping her moving along. And then I understood that was my role. Not telling everybody where they're going to be, not telling everybody what they needed to do. One of the things that just felt right with me with this whole change in the factory was people were making progress. They started making their own improvements. And that I was super excited about. HR VP comes out for her visit, as she does every 6 months. Flies out from California to Michigan, and her process is to put a sign-up sheet on the conference room door. Everybody who works there, you're free to reserve 30 minutes with her and just spill your guts about how much you hate working here. And that was her practice in the 14 years that plant was open. And this visit, she came out on Monday and she put that thing up on the door. She goes through her week there, and as she always does on Friday, she has a meeting with the manager to tell the manager all of the opportunities for improvement. And she did that quite effectively. She's a wonderful person, very professional, and very direct, no nonsense. And when it came to taking care of people, there were no excuses. So my first meeting with her, man, I was squirming. I couldn't wait to get out of it. After we made this change, after people started taking responsibility for the plant, that next visit, she came out, she put the list on. On Friday, she sits down in my office and she says, Steve, I want to talk to you about something. And I'm just thinking, this cannot be good, because nobody starts a conversation with that and gives you good news. And she says, Steve, last time I was here, 6 months ago, I put the list up. I had 13 of your people sign up. Now, there are 32 people in the plant. Besides you, that's 31. So 13 out of 31 people wanted to tell me how miserable of an experience it was to work here, how much they hated what we were doing, how badly the company was managed, how badly this plant was managed, how much they hated this place, but they couldn't find another job, and that's why they stayed. And like, well, that's really reassuring. And she said, this time, only 2 people signed up. Like, it sounds like progress, right? And she said they both wanted to thank me for the changes that I had made and how much they enjoyed working here and how much they feel like they're making a contribution and how much they appreciated what the company is doing for them. Steve, what changes did I make? And I'm like, well, I don't know, Linda. What do you mean? And she had this way of looking very, very polite with a smile on her face, and at the same time, the fire was shooting out of her eyes. Like, no, don't even start with that. What changed? What happened? So I tell her the story. And as I'm telling the story, like, I'm starting to reflect on this idea, like, this actually worked. And I'm excited about it, and she is getting upset. And she said, how did you make all of this change? And I didn't know anything about it. And she said, how did Kevin keep this from me? Kevin was my boss, the president. And like, well, Kevin didn't really keep it from you. I mean, I didn't tell him. And she said, you didn't tell him, and you didn't tell me, and you went ahead with this. Do you realize what you could have done? And I'm like, well, Linda, what changed? And she thought about that for a minute. I said, we're a highly regulated company, medical device. FDA regulations, we're ISO. We didn't change a policy. We didn't change an SOP, a work instruction. Nothing changed. Nothing. The only thing that changed was my attitude, my approach to leading people. And this was the result. And she kind of thought about it for a minute. She backed down. Fast forward 6 months. She wants to know how we're going to roll this out all around the company, the other 2 factories in California. As a result of this, we ended up getting rid of employee evaluations. Everybody hated doing it. And we had this big meeting about how we're going to improve it. And we were doing this video conference between 3 factories, and they, hey, Michigan folks, what's your opinion? And we're like, nobody wants to do it. Nobody gets anything from it. Stop doing it. Nothing's going to change because we write these things, we put them in a file, and they go away, and nobody looks at them. So why write them to start with? And okay, we'll stop doing that. So these things started taking over. And what I got out of this whole thing was this simple idea. To me, 2-second lean has nothing to do with the 2 seconds. To me, it's 100% about that engagement of teaching, mentoring, teaching, coaching, mentoring, inspiring. It's that talking to everybody every day, understanding where they're coming from, and demonstrating what it is that we stand for as a company. As a result of what we had done, we had made some measurable improvements. Up until this big change, we had 18 consecutive months of mandatory overtime. Supervisors telling people, I need 3 people on Saturday, you, and you, because next Saturday is going to be somebody else. And that was over and over, 18 months of that. We had 11 customer complaints. We had very low morale, very high turnover. We make this change. The following 12 months, we had 2 customer complaints. The customer had investigated and verified that the complaints were unfounded because the defects actually happened downstream of our factory. So really 0 complaints, 11 to 0. We had no mandatory overtime. There was overtime, but the employees decided how much needed to be done and who was going to do it. It was no longer mandatory. From that, engagement was high, and our turnover was super low. And I attribute that to this moment of watching this video that I didn't want to accept, and understanding and started in believing in what it was that I saw there. That simple act of, what are you going to do next? What are you trying to accomplish? Just 2 seconds. Don't try to do too much. That video was a shift. That was a pivotal moment for me. And since then, I've gone on to become a professional coach. And now I'm using the same thought process with people that I work with at Gemba Academy. And when I build enough rapport, I start talking to people about how their companies are running, and I ask them, do you like the way the company's running? Yes or no? Do you like the way things are working out for you? And I get the answer, no. Then why do you run it that way? And then we see a shift. Now what do I do? What's going to be my next step? So I want to thank Paul Akers for forcing this message on me. Well, he didn't force it on me. I mean, other people delivered the videos, but making that available to the world. Simple conversations, simple videos, simple meetings, conversations that we're having at these tables, the pieces that we pick up, they change lives forever. I'm a happier person, I'm more productive, more successful, as were all the people that I was able to work with. And I'm very grateful for that, and I'm grateful for all of you, and thank you for letting me tell my story.
Steve, amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, we're running a tad bit over, so if you have a question, get your hands up now so we can get the microphones to you quickly.
So thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is a little embarrassing to admit, but I like being the hero. How did you get past that to where you got more satisfaction out of being the coach?
How did I get past that to get more satisfaction out of being the coach? I think it was just remembering the misery. I mean, I dreaded going to work. I was afraid of getting fired, and I know people are under a lot of pressure to perform. And the things that helped me move forward were not the statements of how this is how you do it, but it was the questions, and it was getting me to think the right way. And I wanted to be able to do that for others.
Hi. This is kind of funny because I called you about a month ago for some questions. I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
You introduced me to Kata. But anyway, so you had a statement about all these guys on the floor coming up with the ideas, and that you weren't as involved as, directing them. Mm-hmm. Did any mini managers pop up out of this venture, this idea?
Yeah. So did leaders develop? Yeah, there was one employee that I remember very specifically. When we started this, she was telling me, Steve, don't do this to me, please. Just tell me what to do. That's what I'm good at. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. A year after she said that to me, I had moved back to California and then came back to Michigan for a visit. And a couple of days before this visit, her line broke down. In this process, there's a lot of heat. We can work with ovens. Line broke down, products in the oven burst into flames. It's an 800-degree oven. So this person who wanted to be told what to do and just tell me what to do and I'm good at that, no. Line bursts into flames. She's the one who stopped the line, put the fire out, coordinated the team, and understood, hey, someone's got to recalculate tack time. We need to understand how much overtime we're going to need, how we're going to adjust for the customer. I need you to call the electrician to come in here and repair this. We need to clean the clean room, get rid of the soot, so I need you to go. And she took care of all of that stuff. And she had no idea that she was the leader. And that wasn't anything that anybody did. And it was really more about getting out of the way and letting people grow.
So a follow-up question. Did anyone revert back to, I can just rely on this person to come up with all the ideas and they're my new manager?
The team really didn't put up with that too much. I mean, everybody had their strengths and they contributed different things. But for the most part, once people were free to do what they wanted, I told them, you can do anything you want when you come to work. It's 100% your choice. You don't want to come to work on time? Fine, your choice. But are you helping the customer be successful? Are you helping your team be successful? Are you doing the right things for the right reasons? And that's how you need to make your decisions, right? And we had a big problem with people going to breaks and not coming back on time. Once they were accountable to each other, nobody was late coming back from break. And we started seeing that level of engagement really develop.
Thank you.
So Steve will be here this evening at dinner, I believe.
Yep.
So if you have any other questions, I hate to cut him off because I know you have some incredible questions, but we can ask them at dinner and then maybe do some follow-up. And
Great.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing.